recent report by The Athletic actually links the Brooklyn Nets and the Chicago Bulls in more than one way on their potential targets. I'll explain that a little bit more in today's episode. We're also going to dive into the mailbag. We got 5 voicemails we're going to get into today. We'll talk about all that and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Derek Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today, y'all. I want to start off with this quote by The Athletic. We'll talk about how it links the Chicago Bulls and Brooklyn Nets in actual several ways, right? It says there's not a current expectation that the Brooklyn Nets are preparing an offer sheet for Kuminga, but there are signs that Brooklyn could be willing to use its open cap space as a vehicle to execute multi-team trade scenarios this summer, league sources said. Now, the interesting part of this, of course, on the surface level, you're going to look at it with the Bulls being rumored as a target as a team that could be interested in Jonathan Kuminga, that it takes a team in that off the board, right? And that's perfectly fine. While I have my doubts about the fit with Jonathan Kuminga coming to the Chicago Bulls team and potentially, taking the ball out of Matas Buzelis' hands, and a lot of people's hands for that matter. He's a ball-dominant player, even at 22 years old. And the thing that I really don't want to see the Bulls do is do what they did to Coby, right? As far as changing a player's role, not really ever really letting them grow in one singular role, constantly changing it, and bringing somebody on like a Jonathan Kuminga would definitely take more scoring opportunities away from Matas Buzelis, who I do think in his second year is shaped up to be ready to take on some of that and to see what he can do. I'm not like some Bulls fans that say that Matas is a superstar already, right? He has a lot that he needs to show and still growing to get that, but he can't really show it or grow in those areas if you're taking opportunities away from him, right? But outside of that, the interesting part of this is that it seems like the Brooklyn Nets don't want their money tied up in an offer sheet. And that goes back to what some Bulls fans want to see the Chicago Bulls do, and that is use the Brooklyn Nets to either not pay Josh Giddey his $30 million or as a ploy. And something that I've said multiple times on this channel is that you can't force a team to give a player an offer sheet. You can't even force the Brooklyn Nets to meet with the player, right? And no, for those that get to typing, well, if they're not willing to meet with him, that means that we should offer him even lower. No, it means that they have other plans with their money, right? And in this, right, if they are more focused, and which is a really good tactic, if they are more focused with using their open cap space to potentially gain some assets by being the third team in some scenarios and absorb some money, which then is going to get them some assets, I think that you see that makes a lot of sense, right? That actually makes a lot of sense for them in the current state of their team, especially with them having 4 first-round picks. So they're a young team that's far enough away, and while I think that this whole thing linking the Brooklyn Nets to Josh Giddey really just started because they're the only team that has open cap space, there's not really a lot to say that they will when they have the ability to target point guards in the draft, which actually brings us to the next way that they are linked. The Brooklyn Nets are said to be very high on Egor Demin, which the Bulls reportedly, as of Joe Cowley just of the other day, that Egor Demin is the number one player on the Chicago Bulls radar, which ties the Brooklyn Nets again in another way together. Joe Cowley's direct quote was this: I'm going to go over a list of names that I'm hearing who are on the Bulls radar. And it starts with the number one guy on the radar. And I know people are going to ask, why the hell are they looking at another guard? Egor Demin is not your typical guard. Now, what does that mean, right? And the Brooklyn Nets pick at number 9, I believe, which is well before the Bulls pick, 4 picks before the Bulls pick. Actually, they're at number 8, so I was even wrong on that. They're even higher than that. And if they do take Egor Demin, and that's the Bulls' number one prospect, then that takes that off the board. Now, I do think that maybe the Bulls floated out the interest in Egor Demin, maybe to kind of give a filler on what the legitimate interest is in Josh Giddey, right? And for my Bulls fans that say things like, well, the Bulls got to make him go out there and get that deal from the Brooklyn Nets so that they can see what the league market is. No, that's not what that's going to do, especially if us as Bulls fans, we have said multiple times we don't want to see the Bulls draft Egor Demin, or it's questionable if they draft Egor Demin and they re-sign Josh Giddey. Do you not think that that's just as questionable for a Brooklyn Nets team that also has to re-sign Cam Thomas, that has shown all interest in re-signing Cam Thomas, which is going to take a considerable amount of money to get that done, right? So everything that you can point towards the Brooklyn Nets, and I get it. Like I said, I understand why from a pundit standpoint and a conversation standpoint, why you bring up, and the Brooklyn Nets, we brought up a lot about use them to try to not have to pay Josh Giddey the $30 million. But again, like I said, you can't force a team to give a player an offer sheet. And the reason why they may not want to do that, when you sign a player to an offer sheet, your money's tied up until either that team decides to match the offer, which they could wait and hold your money up, or the time period runs out and then you get that free agent, that signing becomes official. That's the thing there. And so hearing that the Brooklyn Nets may not be willing to sign a player to an offer sheet, again, Josh Giddey's name wasn't mentioned directly in that, but I do think if their methodology is we more so are looking to use our cap space to be the third team in a trade and help facilitate that, that would be a universal thought process. It's not just about, oh, we just don't want to sign this X player to an offer sheet. It's, hey, that's not how we want to use our money. And I think that's something that you have to look at in that scenario as well, right? So the thing about this report and it coming out to me, it just pointed towards why it's making less and less sense that this thing that a lot of Bulls fans have used as their thing to plant their flag in, as far as they got to make them go out there and sign an offer sheet with another team, go out there and find his deal. It just may not be that. Like, the market also dictates what team is or have the ability to. And so, yeah, it sucks that you're negotiating against yourself because AK has not done a very good job at that in the past. But, we'll see where the negotiations go. But I do think that all those kind of things, it's like just constantly things linking the Brooklyn Nets, linking the Chicago Bulls. And I do think like that Egor Demin thing, if that is even the Bulls really their number one target. Again, I do think there's some posturing being done in this, similar to the Devin Carter thing. And this could have been, all right, let's float out this interest in Egor Demin, who still is a solid prospect, even though the fit around the Bulls is questionable. Is that let's float this out and see what kind of fillers we get back. Because if the Brooklyn Nets are seriously considering Josh Giddey for their next point guard, then okay, cool. It may not even hit them that the Egor Demin news. But if it's not, we'll see what happens there. So I think overall, with the Brooklyn Nets picking at 8, then they pick again at 19, and they pick again 2 picks back-to-back at 26 and 27, is that the Brooklyn Nets have a lot more assets that would make sense if they want to move up in this draft, if Egor is their guy, than even the Chicago Bulls do. So, we'll see. And like I said, it's a lot of things linking these teams together, and we'll see how that ends up overlapping for sure. But it's just another thing to watch out for as we lead into this draft period, right? This is a draft period where I think we're going to see a lot of what the Bulls' real focus is. We hear a lot, as far as we're looking at fit and overall talent, more so than a certain position. And all that sounds great and it sounds reasonable per where the Bulls are at for sure. But I think we'll see how all that really is going to shake out for this team when it's all said and done. So we'll see. We'll see. Overall, though, I think that the Bulls, there are a lot of prospects in this draft that make a lot of sense for the Bulls, both early and if they can get back into the first. I do think as well we need to start having a conversation over how serious is it that the Bulls could trade Coby White, right? Again, not saying that I don't want to see Coby go. I know there are some Bulls fans that want to see Coby go, and they think that he has this tremendous value. Like, if you think you're getting multiple first-round picks back for Coby, unless they're picks in the 20s, I think you need to check that. Right now, you can get maybe a right outside the lottery pick, but I think the basketball world still looks at Coby as an inconsistent scorer. But we actually have a voicemail on that. I'll get into that a little bit more in detail there, right? But this whole thing of this offseason being where a lot of things intersect. You got your first round pick, great, right? And this is a deep draft. This is a draft with a lot of talent. I think that the talent basically after pick number 6 all the way to almost pick 20 have all very similar upsides, all very, very similar upsides. And that's where you can see the wild variation in where some players can go. There are going to be some players that are taken early that are looked at as reaches, but because that team had them as the number 1 player on their board, it may not end up being a reach when it's all said and done. I think you're going to see a lot of that in this draft coming up. And so, guys that the Bulls aren't high on reportedly, a CMB, a Derek Queen, those type of guys that the Bulls fans are high on, and like Asa Newell, he's shooting up now back in the draft boards. I think he must be killing it in his one-on-one workouts because he was mentioned as a player that can go maybe 16 to 18, and now I see him back in the lottery in some mocks that update like every other day or something like that. Some of the mocks that only update every week or every 2 weeks, they may not have that news yet. We'll see how that varies. But you got players like Jace Richardson dropping out of the lottery, going, and other players coming into it. So it'll be interesting to see how this all shakes out, because this is going to be a draft where I think there's going to be a lot of movement and a lot of players taken earlier than what was initially expected for them to be taken, if that makes a little bit of sense. So let me know what you guys think on all that down below. All right, enough of me yapping. Let's get into these voicemails. This first one that we have, this one's from Mello.
Yo, what up, Hayes? It's Mello. I'm sitting here looking at the video you left on Bull Central about Egor Demin, and I'm thinking, I really think these guys gonna give it to Coby. Like, I don't want to see Coby go, because I'm with you in a sense that his position has changed, or his role on the team has changed every single year since he's been there. And now that they got Giddey, I'm like, okay, maybe him and Coby could be the future backcourt. But now they're looking at this guy and the issue with bringing Coby back as far as how much it's going to cost to be able to keep him, because he can go someplace else and get a shitload of money beyond what the Bulls can actually give him. So I'm thinking, like, now maybe they are going to do this move, to get that number 16 pick from Orlando. Like, they still keep 12, but with that 16 pick, I think they're trying to look at other guards, possibly, that can fill that spot. And not saying that Demin can't play, but I wouldn't like the backcourt of him and Giddey long term. So it's just strange that they would even be considering looking at a guard. And I'm like, if you really look at it, how they're trying to move, maybe they're going to move Vooch and do the Dallas deal. Maybe they're going to do both deals. They'll do the Dallas deal where they'll send Vooch possibly to Dallas and get something, or maybe moving Coby to Dallas and bringing back a center. It's just so many different ways that this could go. It's confusing, but maybe they don't want a smoke screen like they did last year, and then we end up with Matas, but who knows? But this whole situation is crazy right now, man. I still think they should take the Georgetown center at number 12. He would really fit what's there right now and move forward, but it's crazy. Just want to touch base with you on that, man. C-Rap.
All right, Bulls getting rid of Coby. Listen, it could be. And like I said before, it could very well be that. Is that maybe that the Bulls are looking to get rid of Coby. Maybe that they realize they don't want to pay that money to re-sign Coby, and there's things between that, and we'll see what happens. I don't know if the Egor Demin thing plays as much into that. Like, yes, Demin is listed as a big combo guard, not necessarily just a point guard, but he's still best when he's playmaking. He has the ball in his hands. He does have a little bit more scoring upside. The shooting upside, he has some mechanics, but he needs to work on that a little bit, right? But I do think that, I don't know if that has as much to do with Coby, or maybe more about Giddey. I don't know. But to me, people were saying that Egor can play the three, asking that just because of his size. That's the same conversation that some Bulls fans were trying to have with Josh Giddey last year. Igor's a guard. He's a guard. More than likely, he's going to end up being a big point guard in the league, but he's a guard. It just is what it is. No, stop trying to get, it's funny that Bulls fans complain about small ball, right? But then we'll try to put players out of position just because of height and not realize that is not the best position for them. Just like Giddey's best position is not small forward, it's point guard. He is a point guard. That's where he's at. His best at is a point guard. Egor Demin, yeah, he's younger. We'll see. But I think either way, Igor's not going to start right away. But the Egor thing it's interesting. And, I'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with Coby White, of course, right? But overall, I'll say this. Like, the Coby thing, it may come down to money. It may come down to the business aspect of it. And we got a voicemail I'll go a little bit deeper into that with, but it may come down to that. All right, let's get into the next voicemail, man. This one's from Vikram.
What up, Hayes? It's Vikram. So I had two thoughts that I wanted to give. So I've seen a couple reports about Lonzo to the Mavericks. What do you think that would net us in a trade? If this is I've seen a lot of Mavericks Twitter pages, fan pages, saying they are interested in a Lonzo trade. So what do you think that can net us? Could it net us a couple seconds? I don't know, maybe that plus a couple seconds or something gets us Daniel Gafford. I don't know. Let me know. Another thing, if we were to trade Coby, I really don't believe that just the 16th pick is enough value. I think that the value we put on Coby White should be way more than just the 16th pick. I think if that's all we can get, we don't trade Coby. But I was interested to see what you thought about this. But there's that Phoenix Washington swap for the 26th draft. We know the 26th draft is really, really good, and Orlando has the second best swap. Like, they get to choose the second best pick between Phoenix, Washington, and I think it's Orlando. I don't know who else is involved in this swap, but Phoenix and Washington, both of them are going to be kind of ass next year. I don't think Magic are particularly interested in like getting a KD next to Paolo and Franz. I think they want to keep the two. So I don't think they would use that as like leverage in a KD trade. But if we get that pick, not only do we like have a valuable pick, but it gives us more time to like sit back and like let our players grow. Whoever we draft at 12, Matas and Giddey. If that's the trade we want to make for Coby White, I'm more intrigued by that than the 16th pick, because as much as I love the players in this draft, I think that it's better to stay the course right now than like push for like two players and draft two players when we still have a very talented player in Coby White. I don't know. Let me know what you think.
Lonzo to the Mavs would have to be, to me, centered around either PJ Washington or Daniel Gafford. I think that's just because of the contracts. I think that's what it has to be centered around, right? And I think that's what it just has to be. We'll see. Again, I'm not mad at either one of those. Now, I do think if it is Gafford, the Bulls are probably going to have to give up some seconds. I don't think you're going to get Lonzo Ball for Gafford straight up and run away like pack rats. I don't believe that. But, hey, it is the Mavericks. You never know, right? But I do think that there is going to be some serious interest. Now, interest doesn't mean a deal is going to come through. It doesn't even necessarily mean a conversation is going to happen. But I do think that there is going to be some interest there as the Mavs look to at a lot of different players as their potential next point guard, right? Now, as far as Coby, right, you say that the 16th overall pick and whatever is not enough. And I think this, I got to be real. As Bulls fans, I think every fan of a team does this. We look and think that players have higher value than what they do. The Bulls couldn't even get a lottery pick for Zach LaVine. Now, part of that was his contract. Coby White is on a much more reasonable contract, but the team is going to have to turn around and pay him for that trades for him. So, I listen, I think that, and I said this in the last one, I think Coby is still viewed as an inconsistent scorer who, could be more, but hasn't shown it yet, right? And I think getting a lottery pick or multiple firsts is going to be really hard to get that done. And listen, I want to be clear here. Because of how they've changed Coby's role year in and year out, right? It's changed every single year of his basketball career. They have themselves to blame for why Coby's still viewed that way. Now, you're going into the season, and a lot of Bulls fans are saying, well, Coby's going to be the number one scorer. He can get his value up, but then you're playing a Russian roulette because there are way more scenarios in which he hurts his trade value than helps it. Like, what if he doesn't look good? God forbid he gets hurt, right? What if that happens, right? What if the fit with Giddey and Coby that we saw at the end of last year doesn't hold true into this year, and they're struggling again at the start of the year? There's a lot of variables that go into that. I understand wanting more, and the Bulls should get the most back, but I think that we have to also, as fans, be more objective in how we look at this and realize that it could be very hard to get a deal, a large deal like that done for Coby, but we shall see. All right, let's get into the next one, man. And hopefully Coby doesn't leave it all. But let's get into the next one, man. This one's from AP.
Yo, what's up, Hayes? This is AP. This ain't my first voicemail that I left, so hopefully you get to it. Dude, I be listening to every one of your shows, and I think you do a hell of a good job. But I was going to say, I don't think we could pay everybody, man. Like, especially if we trying to build something. I don't think we could pay IO. I don't think we could pay Coby White. We already paid Pat. And you know as well as I know it's going to be hard to get off that contract. So if we trying to tank or trying to compete, like, if we keep IO and we keep Coby, we gonna stay in the middle. Like, so we got to trade somebody, if not all of them. Like, hell, in a couple years, we gonna have to pay Matas. So just think about that. Like, if Matas turn into who we think he's gonna turn into, like he's gonna be good enough to keep us from tanking, but at the same time, we ain't gonna be able to put nobody around him because Io gonna be on a big contract. We gotta pay him big money. He not taking nothing like less than probably 25. And Coby ain't giving us another discount, so we gonna be paying him 25 or better. Then we paying Josh Giddey 30 or better. Pat already getting his money. Like we paying these dudes, but they suck.
Okay, I get that. I get that logic, right? And make no mistake about it. But if you move those players, you're probably going to stay in the middle longer as well, right? Now, the Bulls have the ability to pay all those guys. They do. They have the ability to pay all those guys. And I think the thing that they would have to do then is that's why hitting on all their draft picks going forward is highly important, because if you hit on those draft picks, guess what you're getting then? You're getting value contracts out of young players that are on reasonable contracts. And guess what? By the time Matas Buzelis is up for his contract extension, the contract that Josh Giddey signs is going to be either up or in the last year of its deal. Maybe the same thing for Coby. So it's not as simple as, oh, well, you got to pay these guys later, so you can't pay these guys now. No, you time that. You project for that. Maybe you don't sign them to the full 5 years. Maybe you sign them to a 3 or 4 year deal to kind of oversect and overlap all of that. So I get what you're saying in that. But I think also, like, you're still making a trade. You're bringing salary back. You're not dumping off the salary. And if you are, then you're not getting good players. So then you're still staying in the middle. There's no one clear direction that says you can get holding on to Coby and Io doesn't mean that you're going to stay in the middle. It doesn't mean that you're going to get out the middle by trading those guys either, because again, the value, right? So I get what you're saying, and a lot of people have that mindset, but the Bulls right now have the cleanest cap situation that they have ever had in my history of a Bulls fan. Period. They have the cleanest, and I said this before, and people went and took it as literal. I'm not saying this literally, but even if the Bulls signed Coby, Giddey, and Io all to $30 million contracts, right? They would still have $60 million in cap space next season. 60, right? With that point, I think 7 players under contract, so it's not like you need to sign 10 guys. So it's possible. Now, the Bulls have to think in future forecasts and stuff like that, but we'll see what ends up happening. I do understand, though, for sure, the concern about paying all these guys and seeing it, but the Bulls can't afford it. I want to get that clear. They have the cap space to afford it in now and in the future. But then if you do that, hitting on your draft picks is even more important, because then even if they end up turning into high-level role players for you, but you need that because those are cost-effective, really good contracts where you can get value out of those before they balloon up and they become a huge part of your salary cap. So I think that's how you have to look at it. But all right, let's get into the next voicemail, man. This one's from Todd.
Hey, bro. What's going on, man? It's Todd giving you a shout after your conversation about Alexander Walker. You are a mind reader, bro, because I'm watching him last night, and I'm thinking, can we get this guy without having any knowledge of his upcoming free agency? So was really glad to hear that you spoke about him, because I keep looking around and I'm like, what is the next Brunson? Who's the next, who's the next Shea Gilgeous? Not to say that Nikhil Alexander Walker is that, but he definitely seemed like somebody that could work in our system. So I appreciate that. But I was calling to ask a question about this Egor Demin talk to the Bulls. I just can't believe that they're that stupid to trade away Caruso for only Giddey, and then to literally in the next season turn around and get basically a Giddey / Spencer Dinwiddie clone in Demin. So my question to you is, could this be a ploy or posturing? And, obviously the front office isn't really known for this, but could this be a posture to negotiate with Giddey? Could this be a way of saying, look, you're replaceable, and there's another guy that's damn near just exactly like you in Demin that we could pick up, younger, and and we would have his on a rookie scale, for years versus you, and thus back up off that $30 million a year that you're looking for. So, because I can't see any other reason that they would actually go and pick this cat if we're trying to keep Giddey. And even if, and if we do, why would you have that? So I just can't think that's stupid to go ahead and do that. So maybe they're playing, 4D chess and we're just catching up. So What do you think about that as the thinking, why they're talking, or maybe have seen it with Cowley that that's who they're looking at? Let me know. All right, later.
Yeah, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, I love him. I love the possibility of him. Now, I do think that there's some overlap with him and Ayo Dosunmu, but, I mean, you look at the Knicks, sometimes you need a bunch of perimeter defenders, and the Bulls can need as much defense as possible, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker also has some upside offensively as well. Now, as far as the Egor Demin, I do think it's posturing, personally, right? Now, we'll see what happens. I doubt that it's as much about Giddey, though, as you made it out to be, mainly because the draft happens before free agency. So they can't use it and say, well, we could draft this point guard and you can be replaced, because at that point, they'd either have him or not, right? So I think that those parts of it as well that we have to look at. But overall, we'll see what the Bulls do. Egor Demin is a legit possibility here by the Bulls. But, the Josh Giddey thing, we'll see how it all works out, Todd. I think, the Bulls right now sit at a place where they can go a lot of different directions and they all could make some sense, right? But at the same time, when have the Bulls ever done everything that's sensible? And that's the part that's a little bit scary sometimes with this Bulls team, right? So, but all right, let's get into the last voicemail, man. This one's from Shay.
What's up, Hayes? This is Shay. Look, I know a lot of people that's saying, I know you talked about a lot on your time about Egor Demin, and you just brought up how the Bulls want to get a player that is a two-way player and also can play in that style of pace. But I believe in this. I think it would be a bad idea if we draft Egor Demin along with having Josh Giddey for these reasons. One is because we basically already have a player like Josh Giddey in a way, and two, even if you do look to trade away Coby White, you still don't solve your main position of need, which is center. I believe that we should focus on getting a guy like Thomas Sorber if he's available, or if Von Malowick falls. He's one of our main people that we should be looking at, because let's face it, man. Not only do we have a lot of guards, but if you're planning on bringing back Josh Giddey, it makes no sense to bring in a guy like Egor Demin. And then, two, what was the main complaint that we had with guys like Derrick Jones Jr.? We're playing too many guys out of position. We're playing them in positions that they're not normally comfortable in playing. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand two-way players, and that's good, but let's get somebody that actually plays the position that we're actually looking for. I understand people say best available, but, I don't know about y'all, but I'm getting tired of playing these shooting guards as small forward, some of these guards at small forward, and some of these people who should be playing small forward as centers. Look, I think it's best if we address the center problem and look for like a small forward or two-way guard in like the second round or next draft. That's what I'm thinking, because trying to get a guy like Egor Demin, you kind of are basically like putting in confusion of what you are trying to and really want to do with this team. But that's just my opinion. Anyway, tell me what you think. Peace.
Bro, you are preaching to the choir, man. I think that there are some really good centers in this draft that you just take and you add to what you have here. And I don't think, even if you have to change the makeup of your team, I don't think you regret drafting a Thomas Sorber or Asa Newell. Right, Asa, you have some questions about his position. I do think if he ends up, that three-point shot becomes legit for him, he can end up becoming a 4, and that's perfectly fine. You can move Matas to the 3 eventually. He's not going to start right away either way, so I think those things play a part into it, but we'll see, man. I think that there's a lot of talent in this draft at a lot of different positions, and I understand that the Bulls are looking at it as best player available, because more than any position, they do need a star. And if they believe that a player has that real potential, a likelihood of turning into a star, they kind of owe it to themselves to draft that player. We just got to see if they're going to get it right. And that's the thing that's always scary about a Bulls team. Are you going to get it right? Because we haven't always got it right. And there's a lot of times we haven't got it right. So that's the part into it. But thank you for leaving the voicemail, Shay. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. BullsCentralPod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and or voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.